Hey, happy, beautiful, amazing day. Dr. Bob Rakowski here with this episode of the Doc Walk podcast with my regal friend, my royal friend, Dr. Paul Riegelman. We go back at least a couple of decades. He's a few years ahead of me in clinical practice. I might say decades ahead of me in life experience and wisdom. Here's a guy that was a semi-pro motocross racer. And I've got to tell you, pound for pound, the toughest athletes that I've treated. I don't know that I found anybody tougher pound for pound than professional motocross racers. But Paul, you had an interesting upbringing. Let's start with the farm, because you know what? We ought to put kids back on the farm, because everybody I know that grew up on a farm developed an epically hard, amazing, powerful work ethic. And they also know the law of the seasons, not just for planting, but for life. So let's go back to that childhood for a little bit.
Well, thank you, Bob. First of all, I want to thank you for having me on as a guest. It's a pleasure to be talking to Super Bob, the one and only. So thank you for that. Yeah, I as I mentioned earlier, I had grown up on a farm. And I think that's when I started to maybe realize but not understand how everything is connected. I used to look at trees and think, of the roots of the tree, and then the leaves were kind of later on, find out the organs of the body, how everything works together, everything is connected. But I grew up on a farm with a very strong Christian family, great upbringing. My father was an electrical engineer, MSOE. You might know something about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so we were, as he would say, gentlemen farmers, still raised quite a few cows and pigs. And then all through high school, I worked at dairy farms and, did all kinds of jobs. But I think that the most near and dear to my heart was that upbringing as a farm kid, because you said it, you nailed it on the head. We understood what a long day's work was, a hard day's work. And we could see the appreciation. We could see the fruit of our labors by the end of the year. That was before we had bobcats. They gave us pitchforks and shovels. But that was probably one of the strongest influences on my life. And to this day, I own 3 farms, have quite a few acres, and, have organic farmed many years. So farming is still a part of my DNA. You can walk in one of my sheds and we'll show you all kinds of green tractors. So, farming has been very important to me. But again, going back to that concept, it wasn't until later in life that I realized everything is connected. And of course, being a child of God and all of these wonderful things that God gave us on this earth, we know that it's all part of us. I mean, we're all connected. And when you look at the body, you look at the foods you're supposed to eat for those certain organs, how they help those organs. They even look like the organ, right? God made it real simple. He laid these things out and said, eat this walnut, it might be good for the brain. Eat this tomato, it might be good for the heart. So, going back to that, farming influence was phenomenal. And then, of course, every kid has to have a motorcycle. So that allowed me to go out and travel around the country and race, which I enjoyed. I think looking back on that was the competitiveness, and allowed me to understand that, it's the long race. It's the long run that we're into. And as you mentioned, this is my 36th year in practice, Bob. I think on the 28th year I went back, I think it was the 28th year I went back and did some numbers, and my average day was 92.8 visits. Wow. So I thought 28 years, that's pretty cool. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's what was right for me. And, after I graduated chiropractic school, I don't think I knew a thing about chiropractic. I think most of these students that come out of school now don't really understand or know what it is they do. And I was lucky to get involved with some pioneers, I think, Dr. Sigafus, Jim Sigafus, Sid Williams. I had lunch with him multiple times. He used to go to DE, Fred Barge, John DeMartini down in your
The legends. Yeah. Actually, Dr. John and I are doing a seminar together August 23 in Toronto,
Well,
Canada,
when you
by
see
the way.
John, you say hi to him for you. He'll remember Paul Riegelman real well. Great guy. And, these guys really shaped my professional career. And with the background I had with the good Christian understanding and knowing that healing is a gift from God. It's not something we can just graduate from school and have. You've met so many doctors. I have too. I've been fortunate to lecture to talk with a lot of younger doctors. And you see those that have it, you can recognize them immediately. And then you see those that are going to have to work at it. And then you see those that maybe we should try something else. And I think that comes from the fact that healing is a gift from God. And, if we don't understand it and amplify it and live it, God's going to take it away just that fast. Gifts are not something he hands out just easily. So early in my career, I got hooked up with these guys and remained very good friends with them. Dr. Sigafus, there's so many people out there that say, oh, I don't know if subluxation is a good word to use, and it might be a naughty word. I was reading somewhere that the researchers are starting to disprove these things, and I think that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We know that the power that made the body heals the body. We know that all healing comes from the inside out. In fact, if you try to do it the other way around, you're going to be banging your head against the wall. And so as a chiropractor, I knew early on that I had to see the world, and that's why we set up multiple clinics. As I said, I think we had 9 of them going at one time. Some 36 doctors over the years I've been fortunate to work with, a few maybe not so fortunate, but for the most part, it was a phenomenal experience. And it was never about the money. The Bible says you give and you shall receive, right? So I've just always had the concept that we are servants and we are here to serve mankind. And especially if we have this amazing gift of chiropractic and can completely understand chiropractic and how powerful it is, and just be amazed at the gift that it is, then we have a due diligence and we have a job to do, which is tell the world about it and live it and, practice it, get knowledge of it, learn everything you can, and because you want to apply it and give it to others.
Paul, and so I want to pause because you've given so much now that I just want to elaborate on just ever so slightly. So people that are not familiar with the term subluxation, it means less than a luxation, which is a dislocation. So if you have something slightly misplaced, it's not going to work as well. It's just that simple. And then we start looking further on. And is there a biomechanical issue? You bet. Does it create inflammation? You bet. Does it disturb the nervous system? It better. Your nervous system says this ought to be aligned up. If it's not, there's something not right. And it can go much further than that. Most of the time, it's not bad enough to cause a pinch, but it is enough to cause irritation. You start adding that up. And in some people, it can be near catastrophic. It can lead to someone having a lifetime of health, or less than that, ultimately, that could take them out a little bit early. But Paul, in our pre-conversation, you wanted to go to medical school. And now that's powerful because, by the way, my dad wanted me to go to medical school. And I said, Dad, why do I do that? I never had a visit to a doctor that I enjoyed. Not that I didn't like the doctor, but I didn't like the visit. I didn't like the process. But let's go with your story on that. You were destined for medical school initially.
Yeah, I started out with my chiropractor, Dr. Loftus, out of East Troy, Wisconsin. Phenomenal man. I think he practiced. Unfortunately, he's just passed on maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I think he practiced for 45 years, something like that. But I started with him. My whole family started with him. I personally was about 7 years old, maybe 6 years old when I started with him. As a child, I had horrible allergies. And in fact, I have 2 older brothers, one of which, as I mentioned, is a chiropractor. But as a kid, my parents would put me in the car with the air conditioning on so I could watch them play in the front yard in the summertime. I had a window unit air conditioner in my bedroom, in the 70s. In today's dollars, that's probably $10,000. I mean, it was ridiculously expensive, but my allergies were so horrible. And you can imagine growing up on a farm, being around hay and dust and all that stuff. It was really bad. Well, my father met this chiropractor through the Kiwanis Club, and he said, "Hey, bring your boy in. Let's check him out." Well, of course, my father didn't know anything about chiropractic, but had faith and knew this man was an honest man. So anyway, I went to see him, And I had been getting shots, allergy shots, I think weekly at that time. And all it did was bring on the allergies. It was really a horrible situation. You can imagine at 6 years old, getting a shot once a week in Milwaukee, which for us was probably an hour's drive. So anyway, after about, I'd say 3 months of seeing the chiropractor, my allergies just pretty much went away. By 8 or 9, I was running the baler. We were baling hay. So that's where I had my miraculous experience with chiropractic.
Paul, I want to pause right there for the science behind it. So now there's a term in the medical literature that's called psychoneuroimmunology, which they've since expanded psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology. And so here's what we know. Everything's connected, right? Psycho, thought, neuro, nervous system, immune system, which by the way is a circulating nervous system. That could be a whole different topic. And then endocrinology, all the broadcast messages of the body connected to the thoughts, connected to the nervous system, connected to the immune system, connected to every single cell in the body. And could we take it further? Are we all connected? We are, but your allergies went away. But yet you still wanted to go to medical school.
Well, what you were just saying, there's something called quantum physics right now. And it's funny, everything we're talking about has been proven over and over and over, even though there were many years where there was this internal battle that, do chiropractors really do things? But it's all connected. So, so I had my miraculous experience with chiropractic, didn't even really know it at the time. Again, when you get older, you get some wisdom. So I went through, was, very good in high school and decided I wanted to go to med school, did pre-med, and finally got to the stage where I was sitting in orientation for medical school. And one of the professors got up and said, when we're done with you, we will teach you how to be God. And that didn't resonate with me in any way, shape, or form. As a Christian, there's only one God. And he's triune, but there's only one God. And so I talked to my chiropractor about that. And I remember him, red in the face. This guy was a philosophically straight chiropractor as well. He was red in the face, so upset, but jumping up and down with excitement. Because I said, it doesn't align with my philosophy. It doesn't align with my spirituality. I think chiropractic does. So the funny thing is, the more I got into chiropractic and understood that everything is connected, that, that our brain can tell our body and our body can tell our brain and create this amazing connection. I've always said in chiropractic school, they taught us about innate intelligence and how innate intelligence flows throughout the body. I tell my patients, I call it the Holy Spirit. That is constantly flowing through us, and it's with us at all times. And biblically, when you look at Holy Spirit and try to understand it, those are the things that are kind of tough to follow. For me, it's just really easy to understand that Holy Spirit's with us at all time. And that's the connection for me to not only everyone else, but the higher power. And, I obviously that's been my understanding throughout life. I don't go around and wear that on my sleeve day in and day out. I don't, I try to always preach goodness in the office and preach happiness in the office, but down deep, that's my core. That's what's allowed me to become and do so many great things. And the funny thing, Bob, is 36 years in, and I my body at times says, maybe you should slow down a little bit. And I have slowed down a little bit, but my brain says, I'm just getting started. Let's do something now. Let's keep moving. And so I got my first taste of medicine at a very early age as well. It's funny. My nephew is a medical doctor. He went through the Air Force Academy, and he's the son of my brother, who's the chiropractor. And he's got it understood. He understands that there's a necessity for that. And I always tell people that there's a necessity for drugs, but chiropractic is always first. We're going to do that first. And in my opinion, it's backwards. What do we see? 15, 20% of the population. I think it should be the other way around. We should be seeing 80%. They should be seeing 15 or 20, because we know the potency and the dangers of the toxins of the drugs that they're handing people. And if that drug doesn't work, we're just going to try another drug. And as a chiropractor, we see all of those negative and kind of failed cases. We see so many of them, and you can't help but become slightly tainted on that. But we understand there are phenomenal medical people out there, just like there are plumbers and electricians. If they have a passion for what they do and they understand what it is they're doing, it's not a job, it's not a way to make money. They understand, love, and appreciate what it is they're doing. I think they're going to do it in a much more ethical and responsible way. So that's how I got into chiropractic. And then, as I said, knowing all of these fantastic mentors of chiropractic throughout the years, it was my mission to see everybody humanly possible. I wanted to see the world. And, we did. It wasn't uncommon to have 300 or 400 patients a day in the office. We had patients flying in from all over. I had just like you, Bob, you've seen some of the world's greatest athletes. Just the experiences I've had, because I understood what it was that chiropractic is. And, I tell young doctors, be very careful, because when you finally understand the power that chiropractic is, it can be very scary, because it's a huge responsibility. When you really understand that every human out there walking around needs chiropractic care, and you can enrich and enhance their life with chiropractic care by adjusting them to reduce the subluxation, to love them, to care for them, it's scary, because all of a sudden you find yourself doing anything and everything to help people out. I've got so many stories, but one of the things I always tell doctors is, we're here to serve. Like I mentioned earlier, the day you take that first nickel from a patient, you are then their servant. And you better keep it straight in your mind that you are there to serve them for whatever they need. I had a patient years ago, was in hospice care, really, really rough shape, was going to the hospice facility to adjust her. She wanted to make sure she was getting adjusted. After the second or third visit, they were on to me. They had a picture of me at the front desk to keep me out. And so I called Mary and I said, hey, they won't let me in. And she said, well, I've got a window.
Wow.
So there was your chiropractor crawling through a window to adjust her. And the amazing thing is, I've got the notes from the doctors that she'll never leave the facility. She was terminally ill. She went on to live another 7 or 8 years after that, got out of hospice care, had an amazing life. She was well into her 70s at the time. But, if a guy has to climb through a window to adjust someone, I think you're committed to what you do, and you know that you are there to serve. And I know that's kind of a crazy deal, but I've had a life full of, getting myself out of the way so I can help others. Sure. And, service is so important.
Paul, I want to get back to that for a moment. Right now, the way they run hospice is you don't give anything to help the patient get better. You just make them die more comfortably. That's the rule. It's called palliative care. So if it eases your suffering to have this gentleman who does something different come into you, what do you care? You're there to ease their suffering. And I'm willing to bet that them blocking you from seeing her increased her suffering. But where's that go? And by the way, here's some interesting stats, right? We have it now well publicized. 117,000 medical doctors walked away from medicine in 2021. They were probably making an average of $300,000 a year, having dedicated 12 to 15 years of their life. Why'd they leave? It wasn't burnout. It was a total disconnect. They were there to first do no harm. No, they weren't allowed to do that. In fact, plenty of them stated, wait a minute, what we're being mandated to do is harmful and deadly. And if you said that, you got censored. And that was just the medical doctors. We start looking at nurse practitioners and other professionals. 350,000 walked away. And I hope that's, some of them are going to go back to chiropractic college, naturopathic college, because they have a good understanding of the human body. And now they know the downside of medicine. And by the way, the upside. And they determine right then and there, the downside exceeds the upside. And if it's not the most extreme case, most of us can agree. Should you take a drug if you need it, if you're going to die without it, but it shouldn't be your first choice?
Yeah, let's try the natural thing first and understand that, again, all healing comes from the inside out. And, that, as you said, if it's a traumatic condition, I always tell people, if you're in a car accident, you break your arm, maybe don't come to me first. Let's go to, because I've actually, in my lifetime, I've had, such followers of chiropractic that they're afraid to go to the medical people. And no, I mean, they're there for a reason. They're phenomenal. They're, like you said, great understanding. But nowadays, all you have to do is turn on the TV for a few minutes and you're going to see that drugs rule the world. The drug ads that we see on TV are just ridiculous. And, quite frankly, I don't even think most people even understand what these are, but it's that message, it's the constant message that if you're sick or you don't feel well, take something from the outside in. I remember one day I was at Walgreens. I had to pick up some pictures. No offense to Walgreens, but not one of my favorite stores. And this was years ago, and there was a DARE officer there. He had his jacket on that, he was out talking to kids about drugs, and he was picking up his prescription. And I couldn't help but just bring up the conversation of chiropractic and medicine, But we see so much medicine being handed out. And as you know, now the latest frontier is to our children, antipsychotics for our kids, and all the Ritalins and all the garbage they're handing these kids when they really, really just need a good adjustment, a good diet, some good nutrition. Parents, talk to them. So yeah, it's been a phenomenal journey. And going back to Mary, who I crawled through her window, not only did the MD stopping me from going in there make her pain worse and make her problem worse, but her anticipating her chiropractor was going to climb through her window had to do an awful lot for her healing. So, and it's funny, she had this crazy little dog. Toto was the dog's name, had a crippled hip. Well, I adjusted that dog too. And the dog made it even longer than Mary. I think she went another 8 or 9 years. But it's, I had another experience years ago where I got to go to an orthopedic ward for a patient who had a neck fracture. And they asked if I would come in and take a look at him. I said, sure. I was scared to death, but the outcome was phenomenal.
Well, let's stop there for a moment. A fracture could be a contraindication to an adjustment. So you obviously had to modify how you did that. We're not talking high velocity. We're not talking high force. So if all your mindset of chiropractic is they crack, because there's people on the internet putting microphones on people's neck and celebrating the popcorn, that's not the correction. No. The correction is the right force in the right direction with the right time. And we might even throw in the right intent, which you clearly have.
And I'm a big believer, Bob, that it's love. It's touch, it's feel, it's the connection, it's the emotional, physical connection. And when the parents are in dire needs and say, will you come in and take a look at my son? He's paralyzed from the neck down. What do? Do you run and hide? I said, yeah, I'm going to come in and see him. I'll come see him. Well, can you adjust him? I said, let me take a look at things first, see what's going on, assess the situation. But yeah, we did lay hands on that child and he improved dramatically. Went on to be, no longer a quadriplegic.
God bless.
So, wow. Just again, yes, God bless. I take no credit. I take no blame. I'm not here to say anything I did had anything to do with this. It's all the power that is inside of each and every one of us and the understanding of that power and being able to tap into it. And, if we just have faith in what's here, over the years, I've had many opportunities to speak to church groups, youth groups, talk to men's groups, women's groups at churches. And I always tell them the same thing. We study the understanding that there's a higher power, and we understand that God says, keep your body as a temple. Why do we run outside and look for outside objects? It's almost idolatry in a way. Why do we go out and look for these things when it's all right here? And it's so amazing to see people start to tap into that and understand that, wow, yeah, when I get a cough or a sneeze, that's actually my body healing itself. When I have that upset stomach after eating the Mexican food, that might be my body healing itself. And, so the fun of it is understanding that, having the Christian belief to be able to share it with others through love, and truly I asked one of my patients a couple of weeks ago, I said, how would you sum me up as a chiropractor? And I find that really interesting to ask patients, because you're always trying to learn. And they said, you're genuine.
Mhm.
And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, you want me to be better no matter what it takes. It doesn't matter if she gives me a full copay, even though I don't take insurance. It doesn't matter what the bill is. I don't care. I don't even want to know. My staff, I don't ask them. I don't want to know. I just want to make sure that that patient is getting better. And you know what, Bob? I tell all these young doctors, you give a 12, 16-hour day. Put in your time. You call people at home so they have your cell phone number. You send a birthday card every year on their birthday. You call them randomly just to say, hey, I'm just thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. You do that, you give, and you will receive beyond your wildest dreams. There are times I look around and I don't even know how some of these things happened. And then I come back to work and I'm happy and I feel home. And that's how all of these things happened. So many people are in this, doesn't matter what profession, they're in it for money. Obviously, you have to pay your bills, but my gosh, as I said earlier, if we understand what it is, we truly have what that gift is. It's a little spooky because, man, we got a lot of work to do. And there's no end to it. There is no end to it for those patients out there that are suffering. And you don't go see a chiropractor once or twice. We did numbers on retention back again on my 28th year, and our average retention was 62 visits.
Wow.
And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I look at the practice now, and I think it's over 25% have been here 25 years or longer. And that, to me, is what it's all about. It's about educating, loving, caring for those people, and wanting to help them. So when she first said genuine, I thought, well, what does that mean exactly? And yeah, I'm real. And she said, no, you want me to get better no matter what it is. And that, again, that's not, oh, woe is me. Look at me. That's great. No, it's just being a principled chiropractor, understanding the concepts of it, and then loving people and knowing that we're here to serve, which is what I love. That's what I do.
That is a success strategy. I don't care what you do. If you show up like that, you are going to be a success. I want to tell a little story. Then I want you to wrap up with advice for patients, because you just gave a full course. And keep in mind, it's not complicated, is it? Show up as your best self, in service to something bigger than yourself, and get better consistently, and do it with passion and love and commitment. You can't lose with that winning formula. Period. End of story. But the day that changed my life, when my chiropractor saw me, 1985 with an injury and not knowing anything about chiropractic. And I go in and I'm a poor college student at Milwaukee School of Engineering, where your dad went, right? The MIT of the Midwest, same degree, fascinating. But anyways, it was $12 a visit. And I looked at Mike, I said, Dr. Mike Wickers, I said, my God, I don't know how I'm ever going to pay that. I'm a poor college student. He says, Bob, I learned a long, long time ago that if I take care of my patients will take care of me. Well, he says, I don't care if you pay me $1 a week. Well, I promise you, I sent him hundreds of patients, because he had that heart, he had that skill, he had that philosophy, and he changed my life. And let's go with BJ Palmer. He said this: you never know what you may think, say, or do, and how it can impact millions tomorrow. And this conversation might get to millions, and it wouldn't have happened without Mike Wickers serving from the heart. So what's your final message to patients now as we wrap this up? Because there's the ones that need to know, as well as our docs that need to understand our gift is far beyond what, sadly, too many people at school don't know enough to teach it to us.
Well, you're exactly right. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of young doctors and talk to colleges and things like that. But I made a conscious decision maybe 15 years ago that those people already know about chiropractic. I need to get to the lay people, the public, and let them know what this is all about. So I started doing more lectures and talks with just patients. I had some phenomenal, we call them dinner with docs and doctor talks, hundreds and hundreds of people there. It's been very, very fun. But patients have to understand, if we just look at how do we heal? If you have a little cut or a bruise on your arm, in fact, I gave this talk to some second grade kids years back. And I said, if you cut your arm lower or you cut your arm higher, which one's going to heal faster? And, then I explained to them that, of course, this one's going to heal faster because it's higher, it's closer to your nervous system. But if we just look at our body and start to just understand it, if we drink a Coca-Cola, how do we feel? If we eat a pizza and sit on the couch, how do we feel? Or if we go for a walk, how do we feel? If we have a really good, healthy salad, not iceberg, but a good, healthy salad, how do we feel? And it's the same thing with chiropractic. So you go see the chiropractor, you're going to immediately notice a change. Then you talk with the chiropractor and make sure they educate you and tell you every step of the way what it is that you need and what they plan on doing. And then also understand that chiropractic is not symptom care. We're not here to take care of back pain. We're here to take care of the problem that's causing that back pain. And we look at the body as a constantly adapting and changing body. Sitting in the car, taking breaths moves that spine. So I always tell people that chiropractic care isn't symptom care. We're here to keep you healthy for a lifetime. So I always tell them, how often do you mow your lawn? How often do you comb your hair? Do you shower every day? Do you use deodorant? Do you wash the dog? Do you vacuum the floor? Why don't you just do that once a year or when the floor is really dirty, right? Well, we do that every day. It's called maintenance. It keeps our life in much better balance and harmony. It's so nice to come home with a clean carpet and the lawn is mowed. Wouldn't it make sense to do that with the most important thing that we have, which is our body? We don't just walk around in this thing. Let's take care of it. So wellness care and maintenance care, whatever you want to call it, check yourself. We try to tell people once a week you should be in just for a wellness checkup. Some people feel better once a month doing that. Fine, whatever it is that makes you feel better. Way back in the day, it was 3 times a week. But understand that chiropractic is a process. It's a lifelong thing, just like everything else is in life. We don't stop learning, Bob. You've been in practice 34, 32 years. I'm 36. There's so much more to learn yet, and I'm so thankful for all of the gifts that I've received so I can tell patients about that. And just have faith in your own self, have faith in your body, and you will be amazed at what will change, what will happen. We've got multiple patients that have been here 38 years when my brother started, 2 years before me, and they're still getting better. I mean, they're still changing. They're still getting better. They're just happy. You go through and look at your patient list, Bob. How many of them have been in the hospital for any chronic disease? I mean, they're healthy. Yeah. They're not on drugs. They're when you see someone and they say, oh, it's really rainy today, cloudy. No, it's sun is up there. It's beautiful. These are the people that have that outlook. My only child, he just graduated high school. Never been vaccinated, never taken a medication in his life. And most of my patients are very similar in that way. And you can spot them a mile away. They're just full of love and life and energy and happiness. And that's what it's all about. So chiropractic is good. It's goodness. It's love. It's happy. And it happens to be the most important and powerful healing and healthcare in the world by far. It's just unfortunate more people don't know that. And unfortunately, even a lot of chiropractors don't know that. But those that do, man, jump in and get in line and get a part of it, because it's the best thing you'll ever do. Bob, I want to make sure you too are one of my greatest mentors in life. I think Dr. Sigafus, Fred Barge, D. Martini, Sid Williams, and you came around a little later in my practice. We had dabbled with nutrition, but I had no understanding of the simplicity, the way you make it so simple. I can tell you're an MSOE guy with that electrical engineering stuff, because, man, you talk about enzymes. I even have a hard time pronouncing, and you just rattle them off left, right. But you made it so simple for the doctor to use, because I know you're passionate about it, and you want the whole world to be nutritionally better off. And that changed my practice dramatically. There was always that little element that, gosh, we can get them so good, but there's some people we just need to go a little bit further. And it's amazing the simplicity of understanding that you allowed me to have on nutrition, even though it's very complex. But that simplicity that I've been able to incorporate in my office on a daily basis, a lot of time, has made a huge difference in my practice. We know that they have to be unsubluxated. They have to have good posture, good structure, good feet, make sure they're walking around with some good orthotics and good nutrition. I think it's the Magnificent Seven, if I'm correct, is so important. I've got that poster hanging in my hallway. Should have your picture on it though. But it's so important to understand all of those things encompassing. But I just want to make sure, Bob, I thank you for the fantastic mentor you've been in my life. So thank you, sir.
Well, you are very, very welcome. And Einstein said this, right? If you can't explain it simply, you just don't quite understand it. And one of my favorite little spins on that, physiology is infinitely complex. Good health is not. Biochemistry is infinitely complex. Good nutrition is not. So if you've got someone, my gosh, trying to make everything as complex as can be, they don't quite understand it just yet.
That's genius. Yeah, very true. Very true.
All right, Paul. Thank you. I love you, brother.
Love you too.